optimizing encoding for stage video. So this section is really just an entire section about H.264. As you know, it's a really popular and flexible video codec. Codec being the encoder, decoder, or compressor, decompressor, or whatever. There's not universal agreement on what it means, but it's that little piece of software that tells you how to compress video to make it smaller and also to view it, right? To decompress it into something watchable. There are a lot of different codecs out there. And then once you compress using a codec, that video is stored in a container. This is something I like to point out because it's kind of unique among digital media files, right? If you have an MP3 file, you know what it is. It's an MP3 file. If you have a doc, you know what it is. It's a Word doc. If you have a video file, it could be a MOV, and it could still contain different codecs, right? So a QuickTime movie could contain H.264, or it could contain Apple Animation, or any number of other codecs that it supports, right? So container and codec are not the same thing in the video world. H.264 is used in many different formats, which I list here: MP4, F4V. That's the Adobe one for Flash. That's the H.264 format for Flash. M4V, M4A, .mov, and 3GP. But not all those files are H.264. I'm pointing this out because Flash will just play it, right? You don't need to make your video file an F4V in order to have Flash play it. If you have an MP4 that's H.264, you can just load that in. H.264 is just the latest codec that was added to Flash. Flash has had video support since about Flash 4, Flash 5. That's when Wildform launched Flix, which encoded video into Flash using a motion JPEG variant. So it was basically just images in a row, and you had to put on custom memory management into the video file so it didn't overload Flash. Then in Flash 6, Adobe added the Spark codec to Flash. So the first generation of FLV used Spark, and it was actually pretty low quality also. But you needed Flash Media Server back in Flash 6 to deliver it. So then Flash 7, they gave progressive support to that. Flash 8, they added VP6. That was the really nice looking codec that convinced Hollywood to switch over. Then and that was in Flash Player 8. In 90115, which was the Movie Star release, that's when they added H.264. That's also when they added full screen hardware acceleration to improve the playback of H.264. Then in Flash Player 10, they introduced the concurrent with Flash Player 10, they introduced the new format, which is F4V. But again, you don't need to encode to F4V as long as it's H.264. You can play it. And they introduced hardware acceleration outside of full screen, and they introduced OSMF and strobe. Okay, so this was all around Player 10. Then with 10.2, we now have stage video on desktop and mobile. That's something I want to reiterate. So that's the history of video support in Flash in one slide. And you can see it just keeps getting better and better and better. Why did Adobe pick H.264 at that point in time, right? They were looking for a new codec. They had VP6. People liked VP6. Onto had VP8. It looked really, really good. You know, why did Adobe pick H.264? H.264 looks really good at a lot of bit rates. I don't know if you recall, there was 3GP was one of the formats that H.264 is encoded into, right? 3GP is a purely mobile format. I mean, that's what it was designed for little cell phone videos. That's H.264. Blu-ray is H.264. Okay, can you conceive of two more distinct opposites in terms of quality and experience, right? From little cell phone videos up to Blu-ray, we have H.264. So it looks good. It's designed for a lot of different bit rates, whereas VP6, which looked really good, was really optimized at around a megabit per second, right? And after that, there was diminishing returns, and under that, it didn't look as good either. So H.264 encodes really quickly. It encodes much more quickly than VP6 did. H.264 is not controlled by a single company. VP6 is controlled by Onto, right? A lot of codecs are controlled by individual companies. H.264 is not. There are patents claimed on it. It's an interesting area, which I won't get into here. They've promised, though, that they won't sue consumers, so that's good. And H.264, this is the key, right? It's already used by many firms in their products. So that means hardware is already optimized by Apple, Sony, Nokia, SanDisk. There used to be a company called Palm, apparently. BlackBerry, Microsoft. And it's already in those devices like Blu-ray, PS3, Xbox, iPhone, iPad, right? There's a lot of H.264 optimized hardware out in the market. And I didn't put a slide on this, but there was already an industry-wide workflow based around H.264 codec, right? So if you worked in any media industry or any media-heavy industry that worked a lot of video, broadcasting, transmitting it places, all the boxes they used were, not all, but almost all the boxes they used are optimized around H.264. H.264 was already part of their existing video workflow before they were going onto the web. So that's why you encode video using H.264 to deliver the best HD video, right? The hardware that we're using is optimized for H.264. It's not optimized for VP6. So yes, you'll still get stage video improvement out of using VP6, but you'll get better improvement out of using H.264. Okay, and that's why the process of improving of optimizing your video encoding for optimizing the quality of delivery is really just about learning how to work with H.264 instead of VP6 FLVs. How do you encode an H.264 video if you don't already have one? You take your source, you load it into the Adobe Media Encoder, and you pick a preset that starts with F4V, right? You see the other ones start with FLV. That's the older codecs. So F4V. Oh, there was an FLV up there. That shouldn't have been there. The rest are all in order. But if you don't like working with presets, you just go to the export settings screen, and under format, you pick F4V. Okay, and that is how you encode H.264 video using the Adobe Media Encoder. After that, it's like all video encoding, it's a matter of experimenting, see what gets you the best results. But again, by using F4V, you're going to be tapping into the optimization that's available to you through the computer that you're working on. If you don't have the Adobe Media Encoder, another encoder that I like working with, it's on Mac, is FFmpeg-X. It's the Mac port of FFmpeg, which is an open source media encoder. And you can download and install that, and you'll see that they make it pretty easy. Any video setting that has H.264 in the name would generate a video file that Flash can understand. Limitations of stage video. You can't have more than 8 concurrent videos on the desktop. I really don't know how many people that'll impact, but I've never delivered more than 8 videos concurrently. But it's a limitation. Now on mobile, it's 1, right? So when you're delivering to mobile, you can only use stage video on 8 videos. On 1 video at once. On desktop, it's up to 8. What happens if you try to play a 9th video, like with OSMF, right? And it's using stage video by default, and you try to play that 9th video at the same time, it just won't use stage video. The other 8 will. If you kill off one of those 8, you can then play the next video using stage video. Okay? You can't freely rotate the video. Remember, I said part of the savings here are by trimming all that creative control that Flash lets you have with movie clips and so forth. We don't have that. And, right, it's being rendered directly to the screen by the graphics card. So we have a series of creative limitations here. The first being you can't freely rotate the video. You can only rotate at 90-degree intervals. You cannot apply 3B. You cannot apply 3B transformations at all. 3D. Color or skewing transformations, right? Again, because we have limited creative control. You can't apply alpha channel, blend mode, filter, mask, scale 9 grid transformations, right? Again, we have limited creative control. But remember, we're talking about video. We're talking about almost all the use cases just being a rectangle that we don't want to alpha fade and we don't want to skew transform. Because, remember, the video card is rendering directly to the screen. Flash never gets that image back. So you can't copy the video into bitmap data, right? You can't actually grab any of the imagery out of that video. You can't bitmap cache the video. You cannot embed the video. If you know what I mean, this is not done very often anymore. It used to be done a lot more. But you can take a video file and embed it on the timeline and then compile your SWF, and that's embedded video. That won't work with stage video, right? Because that's already in Flash. Flash will just render it to the screen. It has to be delivered over the NetStream object, which is progressive in streaming video. Finally, you shouldn't, this isn't you can't, this is you shouldn't, use stage video with transparent SWFs. Remember, the W mode you'll want to use is direct in order to ensure cross-browser, cross-device performance. And in order to do a transparent SWIFT, you have to set W mode to transparent, not direct. So anything that would require you to change the W mode to something else would preclude cross-browser, cross-platform consistent playback of the stage video feature. Okay, so for those of you who fell asleep, wake up! I have a 10-second summary. Play better HD video with stage video in Flash Player 10.2. To optimize the experience, you'll use H.264 video, and you will set W mode to direct. And you will want to use OSMF or strobe or flash media playback, depending on your taste for danger, right, to forget about the code. Thank you very much for your time. This talk is posted on Almer Blank Labs, which is labs.almerblank.com. My personal blog is rblank.com, and my training videos are posted up at richmediainstitute.com. Thank you very much.